Just listen.
Yeah, someone sees Springbok 7 and they say, we hard-working team, yes, but we're also a smart working team, because that's what's going to win you games in the end. So,
Chris, how's it, man? Thanks for doing this.
thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Hope you're well, your side.
Yeah, all good, man. How are you guys doing that side?
Yeah, very good. Started training the last 2 weeks, so obviously after a good off time, good to get the lungs burning again. But yeah, all well and happy.
Yeah. Are you in Stellenbosch? Is that where you guys are training?
Yeah, back at camp in Stellenbosch. A little bit different than what you used to. We got a separate gym and separate training facilities. But yeah, back at home in our home base, and yeah, glad to be back.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Are you guys how many are you allowed to be in a group when you're training, or how's it working?
So yeah, we're about a big group of 20 guys, but we are in little groups of 5, between 4 and 5. And yeah, obviously for us pre-season, so it's perfect for us, just sticking with our smaller groups and doing our sessions within that group. Got a few competitions going. So yeah, so we're all part of the big group, but just in our basic groups of 5.
Yeah. And how's it looking? Because I mean, it's obviously lockdown, countries' borders are closed. When does your season start, and how's that going to work?
So season for us is obviously a lot different because we only play international. So I think we're looking at a few things to try and push a local tournament or something within South Africa. There are a few unions that might not take part in the Currie Cup, so to speak. Yeah. So for us, the next till the end of the year is still uncertain, but no international rugby for us as of yet. But hopefully can get a few social tournaments within South Africa. I think will be good for us and also good for a lot of players looking for some game time.
Yeah. Has there been any word officially on from World Rugby on like what's going to happen and things for you guys?
Well, from World Rugby's side, it's just been what tournaments have been officially cancelled, and Dubai and Cape Town are the 2 for now. Obviously, looking at the bigger picture of things, I think the safety of the players and everyone surrounding the sport, I think is more important for them. But yeah, for us at the moment, we can't really set a goal yet because there's no official tournament. But we know for a fact that we're not playing up until December. So a lot of other things we're working on. Hopefully, get a very good pre-season in and a good solid base. Obviously, Olympic year is this year, so following year. So I think that's the big goal for now, and that's a date that we can almost write down and say that is the most likely to happen out of all the tournaments. I think our focus is more on that at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you build a squad around that? Because you've got guys that are older, and then you guys that are quite young. Not a lot of tournaments to prove your fitness, to prove your form and whatever. So how have they managed to kind of plan long term with the squad?
I think it is a tricky one. You've got guys obviously all ages, and you've got some youngsters that are very exciting, and then you also got the guys who back and forth between unions. So a lot of guys are going to play Currie Cup, but still in the hopes to play for the Olympics, play within the Olympic squad. But like I said, yes, it's something that managers or the management will have to almost come up with a different plan, as to speak, because not everyone is going to get the same amount of game time. It's just not possible. And also a lot of guys with their commitments at their unions, if they only got them for a short period of time, they want to utilize them. So, it's going to be tricky. It's just difficult to actually set out who and when will be part of what squad until, we get some structure. I think, close to the time, I think the final 2 to 4 tournaments, if we have the 10 tournaments, but, I think realistically we might only be able to play 6. And then obviously the last 2 will be a big push to see who could possibly make that Olympic squad.
Yeah. And you on a personal level, how have you managed to keep fit during COVID-19 and things?
I've been very fortunate. I was on lockdown with my missus on a family farm up in Beaufort West.
Okay.
So a lot different, in terms of air conditions
Yeah.
but it's been great. I all the space in the world, I had to stay within the backyard, which is quite large. So kept busy and obviously, focus on a few different things besides rugby, being out in the field and actually working and understanding a different industry, so to speak. But condition-wise, I had everything, with regards to space and a good stretch of grass to run. So I definitely kept fit and definitely, obviously, looking after the body rehab-wise. When after a season, you need to get your body back in shape in terms of rehabilitating everything that's taken niggle. So good time doing that. And obviously, the rest is important. Yeah, we've had an off time, which is like active rest. So we've been busy, but also not balls to the wall. We haven't been going 100 kilometers per hour. So a lot of time to do other things, focus on different aspects. And it's been great. The rest, and I think guys obviously did them well. Excited to be back and obviously have a good preseason.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you think the prolonged break has prolonged your career as well, or do you think it's you're still going to call it a day when the day comes?
I think it's a tricky one. After my knee injury, a lot of people said, "Well, Chris, it's another. You rested a year, so you get a year at the end." And rugby, it's very unpredictable. I think the rest has definitely did guys like me well. I think having that off time and coming back and you haven't got a single niggle, is great to go into a preseason. But not necessarily. I think I think my body will tell me when I'm done. And yes, obviously you can feel you're getting older. You have to obviously work harder. But I think, it's something your body will see. Each season is different. Sometimes you walk out a season, you feel like I can do this for another 10 years. And the following year you say, yeah, I've probably got a year or two left.
Yeah.
So I think at this current time, I'm feeling confident and I'm happy where I am. Ideally, I'd like to do this till I'm 50, but if I can do it competitively for another 2 years, I think I've done more than what I thought I could ever achieve. So for me, focus just now for the next pre-season for now, and then I'll move into the next step, and then the next tournament, and hopefully Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. Have they kept track of you guys throughout the lockdown in terms of work rate you're putting in and your fitness levels and whatever?
Most definitely. I think because we're playing in a sport that's so high intense and almost erratic, I think it's important for us to not lose a big part of our base. It's important for us to keep the movement and the clock ticking in terms of what we're putting out on track or what we're putting out on our watches. We want to get a lot of high intensity stuff in between, so you don't lose it completely. So yeah, we've been very busy. We haven't really had, I would say, an off week where we do nothing. I think we've had many blocks of 3 to 4 weeks and a week which is almost low key. But I think we've done a fair amount of work in keeping it base, but also keeping the guys, coming back into training injury free. And I think that's more important, because when we start, we want to start, and we're obviously building it up, but we want to prevent injuries. We want to let guys get through the season hopefully injury free. And I think the crucial part is just keeping a good base. I think that's what we've tried to achieve over the last 4 months.
Yeah. And then what about contact? Obviously you don't take contact for a long time, and now you guys are back at training. How have you implemented that and then kind of taken that step?
Well, I've been catching a lot of sheep and goats in the veld. Tackling my missus' brother every now and then. But no, to be honest, that's something you can't really control. It's something you can't really train. But most pre-seasons are like that. I think, the first hit out you're going to have, your body is going to feel like it's been put in a tumble dryer with bricks. And I think, for us, going in, it's something you'll eventually get back. But I don't think it's something that's crucial. If you can avoid that contact up for the next maybe month or two going forward as well, I think it's beneficial to us, not getting all those knocks. Yes, it's going to be something completely new, but I think our bodies are used to taking contact. It's just getting used to it again. I think there'll be something. And yes, I think, losing that is, you don't lose it completely. I think your body, the other day I was running and I slipped and I forgot to fall. Like, it was the hardest fall I've ever had. But we fall 23 times a day on the rugby field. It's just getting used to it again. I think the guys will pick up with that fairly quickly. Like I said, that first week will probably be in a lot of ice.
For sure, yeah. So, I mean, talking about that, how do you guys go about recovery when you middle of the season and you're going through tournament after tournament, traveling and all of that? What is the kind of recovery protocol that you guys use?
So, I think a lot of the individual players have got different ideas for them, but as a group, we try and be active. I think, getting off a plane after you've played a back-to-back tournament and, just lying on a couch is not going to do anything for us. I think what our focus is that as soon as we get back, you've got a week to do what you got to do. So when we start on that following week, Monday, that you're 100% ready to fire. And I think we got a no excuse policy in terms of, like, when you're back at camp, you're 100% back at camp, and we can't say any niggles or any of those things. So it's very important that the individual has now taken his own responsibility in getting that recovery. We've really focused on having an internal system where the players try and control a lot of the things in terms of, like, a recovery. It's not necessary for us to come in that week, because we're going to do our bit. I think for us, active recovery is important. Yes, you don't want to take any knocks, you don't want to go any far runs, but what you want to do is you want to get your body fresh for when you start again. Our turnaround time is also very short. Going into these seasons, so there's only a certain amount of time that we've got on the field. So when we've got that time, you don't want to be pulling niggles or still trying to recover when you've had that week, and sometimes a week and a bit too. So obviously massaging, getting into the pool when the gyms are still open, guys steaming, stretching, making sure they do what they got to do. Like I said, every guy's different. I think the older you get, the more recovery you need. Start sleeping in tights and things like that. Where the youngsters get off the plane and they go play touches on the beach the next day and they sort it. So everyone's different, but we heavy focused on that off week is not completely off. We still try and maybe push a meeting or two within that time and maybe do a few reviews. So we off, but we never entirely off. We're always trying to be focused on what's the next job and what we have to do to get there.
Yeah. So when does contact start happening again at training? So you've had your kind of rest time, your off week, as you say. When you guys go into full contact again?
So we obviously under different regulations at the moment. So I know the unions, I think, are starting with contact pretty soon.
Sorry,
as soon as they can.
I mean, sorry. Right after your tournament, when you kind of preparing for the next tournament, how much contact in that week between the two tournaments? Sorry, that's what I meant.
Within the two tournaments. Oh, so if I play a tournament, say week 1, and we got week 2.
Yeah. You're flying to Brisbane or whatever, and
so what would happen is that we would go out and play the tournament. Obviously, we've got a no alcohol policy when we're on tour. So guys don't feel the need to go out and see the time and the lights and all those things. As soon as we get back, we whether we win or lose, we enjoy that time or sulk in that time that next day, and obviously try and get the next flight out as soon as possible, so that when we arrive in the next country, we've got like we call it a back to zero approach, where whatever you got to do, you've got a morning session to get back to zero. And so we'll go to the gym, guys will run, maybe have a short gym session, and then the next day almost go straight into perhaps attack or defense session, barring what we start on the Friday or the Saturday. But it's important for us to almost leave that first week behind and then go back into that no excuse almost idea that we still got a job to do and we can't slip up in the week. Yes, coming from week 1 to week 2, we're not going to do the same as we did in week 1, but it's important to almost start putting a few hits in, hitting a ruck, doing your groundwork as soon as possible. So later on to the week, you can get that recovery.
Yeah, yeah. And how psychological is that process of, let's say you've just lost in the final to the All Blacks, you've got to go and fly to the next country, prepare. How much psychological toll does that take on you to do that week in and week out?
Well, I think, like I said, we've really pushed that, almost that, whether we call it staying in the middle of the road, and you can be above 5 or you can be below 5. It's either or. It's idea is that where we should be back to a 0 after that Monday. After a victory, you could be on 5, and you could bail the next weekend because you think you've achieved something. Or you could be on a -5, losing in a quarterfinal, which is the one game you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And you could lose a quarterfinal and play for 7 and 8, or it's you could almost be so far down that you can't get back to 0. So what we've done is, when you hit that plane the next morning, where you've won or lost, you can't be happy over the moon, and you can't be sulking. You have to almost approach that new week as, everyone's on the same page, because essentially everyone is. And that's why we find that we've come off tournaments where we won the tournament and then bailed in a quarter, or we bailed in a quarter and won the tournament. And that's just our back to 0 mentality. It is difficult being younger, and obviously is not knowing how to deal with the pressures. It's a lot different but I think we're a strong group, and like I said, we're heavily focused on, we want to run the group an inside out approach, and not an outside, where the management or coaches, almost controlling how we feel as a team. We want to control that. So we've obviously got leaders who almost drive that, and when we hit that field on that Tuesday, it's flat out. We have to start again and almost start with that whole process of, we need to lay the foundation in that very first session, so we can be successful in the weekend. And whether we're on above 5 or below 5, that Tuesday or that Monday we hit the grass, everyone's back to 0, and we haven't achieved anything. We're not 10 points behind or 10 points ahead. Everything we want, we have to achieve now within this next week. And I think, that first session, you go 100 kilometers per hour and you're really almost burning, and you're obviously fatigued from the previous week, and that brings you straight down. Listen, I felt great the weekend, but, I have to obviously look after myself and start that process again.
Yeah.
So I think that's the group's mental approach.
Yeah. Well, you've touched on something that's been spoken about a lot in the media, is the mental part and the team culture that the Sevens teams have, that we don't see at our franchises and things. Would you say that's the secret behind that, is the fact that you guys are taking a inside out approach, and the team is setting the standards, and the team is leading the conversation on it?
100%. I think what we've formed is a culture of that we want to be successful, and the only way that we know how is almost to work for it. And the part that a lot of people don't understand, or which you can't duplicate, is that we spend so much time with each other that we really become a tight group. And because we're a smaller squad, everyone is part of that group. If you're almost outside the group, you're out of the squad. There's very few times that it happens. And we want everyone to buy into this culture. So when a youngster comes into our academy, he doesn't just get introduced to the senior squad. He goes through our academy, and the first thing you're taught there is, if we're going to train at 7 o'clock, and you've done all your work before that, your warm-up, your stretching, your pre-ab, that also water bottles need to be filled. It's a small thing that we've adopted, and we fill our own water bottles. We carry it that way. We bring our own jerseys, we pack away our own jerseys. And that's just something that started, whether you have 50 caps or 0 caps, everyone takes charge of that. And what it's taught us is that, that whatever we want as a group, we have to do it together. So a lot of the youngsters can't understand that. He comes to the Springbok Sevens, he sees it on TV, and then, the oldest guy or the most senior guy is filling the water bottles, and the second senior guy is getting the ice, and the other guy is getting the jerseys. And he doesn't understand this. And that's what we try and achieve, is that, we want everyone involved, everyone yes, there's obviously time for when senior players take charge, but we want everyone involved. And if you're unhappy, speak to the group and we're going to change it. And I think we want to create a winning culture, and that's where our standards come in. So we try and if we go on the field, whether we won a game or lost a game, we want to tick the box where we're up to standard. So we've won tournaments where guys are we're unhappy with our performance because we don't want to look at the results. We want to look at, listen, did we tick our box in terms of standard? Did we follow the processes? Yes or no? And if we can say yes to that, no matter what the scoreboard says, we're doing something right. And that we try and transfer almost through to training, through to a meeting. We don't have a fine system in our team. Guys just don't come late. It's just something we've adapted as part of our culture that's unacceptable. Yeah. So we've never needed a fine system. Guys, if you don't respond to an email, it's not a fine system. It's just guys don't do it because they don't want to be out of the squad.
Yeah.
So we're very honest, very straightforward. If something's not right, we fix it there and then, and then it's done. It's never personal, but we settle it, and that's how we run our system. And I think that once you're part of that, you don't want to let that system down. That culture is transferred almost to game day.
Yeah.
A guy would in our squad ideally want to pass and let his mate score under the poles than himself. So I think a system where we want to give, and I think that's the true culture aspect of our team.
Yeah, and it seems that there's no egos involved here. You're all superstars. The country loves you, but you stick to that regardless of how many tournaments you win, how many seasons you win, how many leagues you win, whatever.
Yeah, of course. I think, we see it as, the whole system benefits through us being successful, and we going on a plane and only 13 guys are flying over. We come back. It's not the 13 guys that won. It's our squad that won. It's the Blitsbokke that won. So, for a senior guy to come back and be, want the attention is something you'll never find with us. We'll always try and say, listen, bring a youngster in and let him understand, why we work so hard is so we can bring back a trophy, so we can be successful, so our squad can be successful.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back many years ago when Springbok Sevens wasn't a thing. It was just a sport, and no one knew, what culture and like what success was, because we weren't successul. Yeah. So the guys who set that foundation, or guys obviously past, they didn't see the reward of the money and the amount of TV time we get and the amount of sponsors and those things. They didn't get to see that, but they were all part of where we are today. They almost set that foundation, that culture, of we want to be successful. This is what we have to do, and I think that's where the youngsters, almost latch on to this thing that's almost been pushed through, is that they want to be part of this success. And the only way they can do it is to buy in. So for the senior guys is to almost coach that guy so he can almost take your place, so it's a battle. And I think that's what makes our culture so strong.
Yeah. And is that something that's been in place since you joined, the Sevens structures as a youngster, or was it something that was put in place while you were involved?
Yeah, so I got in. I joined the Sevens, Springbok Sevens in 2009, the end of 2009. And what happened was the previous years they were, they weren't on the map. And in 2008, 2009 season, they won the season, and it was just like, wow, what did they do right? And they were fantastic that year. And a year before that is when they actually sat down and said, listen, we're not going to be a mediocre. We want to create a brand that everyone can recognize.
Okay.
But if we had to take that model and that idea and just duplicate it year by year, we wouldn't be the place where we are today. I think it was important that, every year we sit down and we look at our culture and we say, listen, are we still a team that says we can say we got integrity or honesty, or, are we a hardworking team? Can we tick that box? And if we can't tick it, we have to take it off.
Yeah.
And yes, everyone wants to say we're the hardest working team. It's great to have that behind your name, but if you're not living it, then then it must go taken off, and you have to almost earn to put it back on. And I think that's what's great about our system, is that yes, we got that foundation of we've always got on the side of our jersey, it's now inspiring hope, but on the one side it was pioneers of greatness, and that was the initial thought. initial idea is that, we want people to recognize this brand. But again, like I said, it's a continuous thing, because the game of sevens has changed. You can be the hardest working team and not be successful because you're not a smart team. So that's something we have to incorporate. We want to say, listen here, someone sees Springbok Sevens and they say, listen, we hard-working team, yes, but we're also a smart working team, because that's what's going to win you games in the end. So, it's something that continuously develops. New faces come in, new ideas come in, and obviously needs to be added to whatever we want to achieve. So it's very important that just as we adapt, our culture and our system should also adapt.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that this is largely driven by the players and the leadership in the player group. So what role, other than just the coaching, the physical coaching, what role do the coaches play in that kind of system, or do they not really play a role?
Well, I think they do. I think they want to be, I think the most ideal, there was a year, I think the first year that we won the series after a long time, Neil actually said, this is the one year that he felt he didn't have to coach. He was coaching, obviously, but, it was the one year that he felt he didn't have to go to a player and say, listen, you're not working hard enough on the ground, because it was so, hard driven by the players that, he wanted to be the best, and he knew. So it's yes, the coach is coaching, but the players were almost driving that system from the inside. But yes, me as a player, there's a reason why he's a coach and I'm a player. I need to be guided, and that doesn't stop, as a coach, So he carries on. He's a mentor, He has to almost look out for youngsters and say, listen, you're making a bad decision. What are you doing outside rugby?
Yes.
Are you planning on studying, or you look at a guy like Chris and, he's come to his final years. What's he going to do afterwards? Have you thought about what you're going to do? That's important, because, if you've got a player that's, enthusiastic about, not only rugby, and he wants to be successful, I think rugby is almost the tool for him. So in order to get the best out of a player, you need to make sure the player is happy. Yeah. And that's one thing that I feel that you can't do through money. A youngster the first week, got a paycheck, and then next week, what's next? He has to be happy, and that money's not actually going to push that. It's not a motivator for success. So a future or family, or maybe it's something small. Maybe a guy wants to fix his mom's house. It's something small. It's not necessarily a financial thing. It's a guidance thing, and that's what our management is really focused on. We want to make sure that, listen, your family, is healthy. If there's anything that we can do as a system, we want to do it. And I think that's one thing that also gets overlooked by coaches, or not by coaches, but by the outside people, thinking that coach is only there to coach.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure if your family is happy, some of the guys who got kids, their kids at home is healthy, safe, they're going to get the best out of the player. So it's something that our management as a whole really focus on, the outside aspect of rugby.
Yeah. So, one of the topics that's been coming up a lot on the podcast with sportsmen is the role of mentorship in their careers and their life, and you've touched on that now. Besides Neil and the coaches you've just mentioned, who have been some of the mentors for you growing up and that have helped you get to where you are today?
Well, I've been, fortunate that in every aspect or every time of my life, I've had someone who's been there. And growing up, it was one of my conditioning coaches in Bloem, and he was he's out of rugby now, Robbie Brazil, and he used to say, Chris, you're working hard enough, and every time I said yes, you'd always question and say, well, listen, there's something more you could have done.
Yeah.
And he almost challenged me in that aspect, and also challenged me, 19, 20 years old. What is a rugby player after a Free State junior game? You want to go out with the mates and have a few. And that's something I almost had to say, listen, it's great, you celebrate it, but the next day you have to make sure that you're successful on Monday, because if I'm honest with you, it's a lot of guys go through that system and then you never hear of them after this. So what's going to differentiate you? So that's one of the young guys who was with me at that time. And then you obviously go to Springbok Sevens level and you move completely away from that system, and you almost by yourself again, and that's where I think guidance like someone like Frankie Horn and the senior players, they would almost guide me. And Frankie is a guy is when he's committed to something, it's 100%. So if we're going to bright tonight, you make sure there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough to eat.
Yeah.
And the same was on the rugby field. If we're going to focus on that, let's be 110% focused on that. And as soon as we're on the bus, he's a completely different. Then he can switch off and be 100% the opposite. And he can have draw. So he'll give you so much horns on the field and tell you everything you're doing wrong and push you and grind you and never make it easy at a ruck. And as soon as you're in the bus, you're your best friend.
Yeah.
It's a little bit confusing at the time, but it made me realize that it's someone like that who actually kept me at the next level in sense that he challenged me to, when you're at a certain point, be 100% there, and when you're done, switch off. So I've been very fortunate. Obviously, parents that have been by my side. My dad is someone who's recorded every single game, and he's probably watched it more. He knows more about the games than I do, to be honest. And he's someone who would always pick up a phone. And I think that the big thing is someone who's honest, and says, you weren't great. I thought that I was pretty all right. He said, no, you weren't great. You tell me, So it's someone not necessarily in rugby, he didn't play rugby, but, he took the time and almost challenged me in every aspect. So we got another guy, Doc Yanni, and he's our mental coach. And his guy comes from a complete different angle. He's worked with some top sportsmen, but he doesn't really specifically know a lot about rugby, but he knows, like, you as a rugby player, what you need to be successful. And I think that's a big influence that he has almost on our management, which almost transfers right through to us. So
Is Doc Yanni working with the Sevens on a full-time basis, or is it you personally?
Yes, Yanni will work with us on a full-time basis, but not every single day. There's only rugby players' memory and attention span is only so much. So I think he's there when we need it. He comes in on a weekly basis, leading up to tournaments, and then some tournaments he might fly over and just see what's the team environment like. But he's a guy who's always, I would say, on call. You pick up your phone now, and he'll basically take the time or make an appointment and make sure that mentally you're ready, because rugby players, we hit highs and we hit very low. So and it's with sevens, it's so erratic in the sense that you can play in a semi-final and put 50 points on a top team, and then go into the final and lose and be so far down you can't understand how did it get from there to here. So it's important that you have those guys within your group that's almost looking after the whole mental side of things.
So that was one of the questions, was in the sevens setup, is there a mental guy working with you guys? And obviously you've said now there is, but how much does he do that's rugby related, or does he do things that are more relatable to off-field stuff, like making sure you're dealing with the long time away from the family and the disappointments and those things?
I think it's heavy focused on the highs and the lows, and then he's one of the guys who actually brought in, are you on 5 or are you on -5? Because you can't play rugby at a -5. You can't play rugby at a 5. It's one thing that he has to align also with our team culture, because he's a guy, as I said, listen, in order to be successful, we're going to need certain aspects. From a mental side, these are what these aspects could be. And you guys branded yourself as a team which doesn't align with these two, then there's obviously something wrong. So the mental aspect of it, yes, we want to be successful, but we got to sometimes at a point where you're hitting, are you arrogant or are you confident? And that's something that you need to balance out as a rugby player. Am I being arrogant, or am I just so happy with our processes and what we're doing now that we can get confidence? because if you get confidence and it's broken, how do you recover from that? And that's with us, especially we haven't got a whole week to recover from game to game. We play 6 games. We play 6 games, and we've got a weekend. So within 2 days, there's also a mini game in the sense that you're going to a warm up, which is like a game for us as well, because if you didn't have a great warm up, it's not necessarily you're going to have a bad game, but a lot of confidence comes from that warm up.
Yes.
A lot of positivity, a lot of how the guys are going to approach their game comes from that warm up. Is the guys nervous? Are we nervous? Is it something that we can pick up from warm? So we've got almost 12 opportunities over a weekend, which you almost have to box in the sense of I'm going to have highs, I'm going to have lows, but I need to get that 0. And I think that's where we're heavy focused on. Previous years, if we lost in a semi-final and we played for 3rd and 4th, the most likelihood of us coming 3rd was small, because the guys couldn't recover from that loss. But we changed it and said, listen, we need every single point. So are we going to be a team that gives up after we've had a little bit of disappointment, or are we going to be measured on the success of that last game? Because it's another opportunity essentially for us. And I think it's one thing that we've almost changed. If we get a chance, yes, we're disappointed. 2 hours later, we're playing another game. We want to be successful in that game. And then, yes, we understand that there's going to be a review. You're going to see how many missed tackles you've made. But, you've got an opportunity to almost fix that, and also to maybe better us as a squad leading into the next weekend. I think, that's something that, you can't always deal with as an individual. It needs a group buy-in, and there's obviously certain methods and ways to achieve that. And I think that's what Yanni does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've touched on a lot of the mental sides, the mental questions that I wanted to ask on dealing with disappointment and overcoming the failures in such a short space of time. So let's go on to away from the field. So now you've been traveling week in, week out. You're flying. It's long hours. It's jet lag. It's all of these things. How does that take a toll on you in terms of psychological fatigue after a long season, away from the family, sleeping in hotels, and all of those things?
I think I've been fortunate that I've dealt with this for quite a long time. It's on my 12th year, just with the sevens. And a lot of guys is different. I think for guys who are mostly my age, a lot of them have kids at this age, and I think that the biggest thing for them is they want to get back to the kid. Whereas my missus at home, but she's also studying, and she's got friends and family this side. So I can almost, push that box aside that in 2 weeks' time I'll be home,
Yes.
But it's not like my kids at home, waiting for his dad to come over. It's something completely different. So it is, like I would say, it does take a toll on, the traveling. Sometimes you're traveling 10 tournaments. You've got 4 social tournaments a year, which is around the world. You might have an Olympic, you might have a World Cup, you might have a Commonwealth Games, it's all extra. So you could be essentially playing between 10 and 13 tournaments a year, if you don't play all of them. So it does take a toll. But, over the past few years, I've almost come to realize that if I ever had the opportunity, when I was out of the squad and I was injured, I would do anything to be on that plane. I wouldn't mind sitting in 12 hours, on a flight if I can be with the boys. And I think it's something that changes. You hit the middle of your career and you think, I just want to get there and go play and then get back, And the older you get, you realize that your time is becoming shorter and shorter. Is that something you can never get again? You can probably earn a lot of money outside rugby and fly to all these destinations, but you'll never be part of that group. So, as long as you got that opportunity, I've learned to, like I say, I enjoy every single aspect of it. I've also, changed. I'll stop staying in a hotel on the off day. Get your work done in the morning, look through the computer, do what you have to do, but then get out and see something different. You're never going to get that opportunity again. And it's someone like Philip and Carl Brown who always used to say, we're going for coffee. And they try and choose 10 different places. You're going to drink so much coffee, but, the experience of it was something that you remember. So, I think, it is stressful, but it's, if you ask any guy sitting in an office for 12 hours, would he rather be a plane watching movies with his mates? I'm sure the answer would be 100%, flying to Dubai. So
sure.
I think, that's something that, we almost forget as sportsmen that we're actually privileged. We're actually very fortunate to do what we do. And that's sometimes just a small aspect sitting in cattle class on a 12-hour flight.
Yeah, for sure. I find that interesting because obviously having such a close team bond helps with that, because you can do things with your friends rather than just like kind of teammates, So in the off time, you can go for coffee and explore the city and whatever. Is that kind of part of the reason why you decided to stick to sevens and not go back to 15-man rugby? Is because of that, the amount of fun you can have with that team and things?
I think, there's a few aspects for me. If I'm honest with myself, I think, some guys are built for sevens and some guys are almost built for 15. So I've played 15s and I feel, I've spent longer time there. I could have been successful. But I feel that, for me, sevens is just something that my body was almost like caught onto, and it's something that, that I could adapt to. And being a smaller 15s player, it's not necessarily I would have had the career and, what I had at seven. So, for me, that was one aspect. The other thing is, as soon as you leave this system and you go to join the other system, even though it's a few months, you realize that the group is so large is that it's impossible to have 50 of the best mates. It's just impossible. Whereas we 20 guys going on tour, you 12 guys, it's a whole lot easier, to be mates. Everyone's on one small bus, everyone, we're doing ice baths, everyone does it together because we're a tight group. And what I find is that the unions is that when you move into a union, you've got a lot of small mini groups. You've got 10 guys hanging out, you've got other 5, you've got another 10, a few guys, obviously, and you form these little groups. I mean, you try and put it together, sometimes it just doesn't work because you don't understand. We understand what makes this guy tick. We understand what makes him happy. We understand that makes him, irritated at the fact that, he wants to leave the room. So we understand each other so much better because we're almost forced to spend the time. But again, you can have groups within that small group, but we just choose to, if we're going to play cards, then everyone must play cards. And the guy doesn't want to know you have to be playing in your room. And that's just how we adopted it. So, guys want to do things themselves, but, it's almost, I wouldn't say forced upon you, but, there's no way that you're going to be left out of the group. There's no guy who's ever going to be, alone unless he's studying or, sick or something. Otherwise, the whole group, want to include everyone. If we're going to a park, everyone gets opportunity. Listen, we're going to a theme park, into the tournament, everyone going. Let's go. And I think that's something we enjoy, we enjoy spending time. And it's also need to find a balance, because coming back from tour, sometimes we've been overseas for 2.5 weeks. You'd come back and, land the evening, and then at night, 9 o'clock, your mate will message you who you spent in the room with for the last 2.5 weeks, says coming over because, he wants to come chat. Yeah. And that's what the girlfriends don't understand. They say, we spent 2.5 weeks with him. No, he wants to come for coffee. It becomes such a norm that, the guys enjoy each other's company in that sense. So, I think it's something special that we do have, and hopefully we never lose it.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And as you said, it speaks to the success and the prolonged success, You guys have been in the top 3 teams in the world for the last 5-6 years. And before that, there was never really that consistency. So obviously, as a sports psychologist, drawing from that, you'd say, well, that's something you've got to replicate if you want prolonged, consistent success.
Yeah, it's like I said, every season is different, and also the dynamics is always different within the squad. You got like new characters, new faces, and you're saying like almost that consistency. I think we're consistent because we work hard, and we buy in, And sometimes the coach comes with a plan, and everyone's sitting in the meeting, and I can see 9 or 10 guys are shaking their head. Even though they're not shaking, you can see that they don't understand it. But, given the opportunity, we buy in 100%. So whether it works or not work, our coach will say, listen, he'll take it on the chin, if it doesn't work. But just buy in. you know, and that's something we almost learned to do, which we've adapted in that sense that, you know, let's everyone buy in, whether we feel it's wrong or right. You know, if someone's going to call a line out and there's someone right next to you, you know, just back him to make the right call. So that buy-in aspect, I think, is also why we've managed to be so consistent. You know, we work extremely hard off, you know, when no one's looking, you know, we are grafting, and it's literally become a 9-to-5 job, you know. So whether we're training, whether on the field or we're behind a laptop, you know, we're constantly working. There's never time to just say, listen here, well, you know, let's just have an average day. There's no such space like in our system for that. So, you know, we work really hard, but then off the field, you know, we are good mates. And with the other aspect is of us, you know, buying in 100%, you know, that's what is crucial. Guys also, we look after each other's back, you know, so we always say, you know, go 100%. You know, if you miss that tackle, the guy on your inside is going to make that tackle. And we almost take ownership. If you drop a ball, you know, the guy who passed the ball said, listen, I'm sorry. You know, the pass obviously wasn't perfect. Even though it was in his hands, he takes responsibility for it. So, you know, if we rate ourselves at the end of the week and say we had a 7 or 8 out of 10, you know, we can't say, guys, are we happy with that? You know, because then we're obviously lowering our standards. You know, we set out marks. We want to have a certain percentage tackle completion. And if we don't achieve it on a weekend, you know, we're dropping our standards. So with that aspect, I think that's why we've brought so consistent. The guys also very hungry in the system, you know. So guys come from all different backgrounds, you know. There are guys who literally grew up, you know, on farms without shoes, you know, and they're on top of the world stage and being very successful. But, you know, the guys are hungry in the system to be successful. So, you know, with that combination, I think that's why we've been consistently on the top 3, I'd say, for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah. Do you think that mental strength and resilience to keep going, to work as hard as you guys need to work, and that you are working in the standards to keep those standards up, do you think the type of person coming into that setup, does he have to have mental strength and resilience before that, or does he get taught that by being part of the system?
Yeah, I think, you know, there are certain guys who are going to fit the Sevens profile, you know. So if you're not a hardworking person, you can't teach a guy to be hardworking. You know, it's either you have it or not. You can be a guy who's very unfit, but he's hardworking in the sense that he won't give up. You know, he's gonna fight until he passes out. You know, and that's the almost type of person that will fit into the type of Sevens rugby player. You know, we've got a program that it's not easy to make it here. There's guys who are, you know, come from school and SA schools, and, you know, if we had a draft system, we'd probably be on the top, you know, and they come into the system and you never hear of them, because, you know, the mental side of it is it's either going to break you or it's going to make you. And, you know, it's a give and take. Obviously, you're not going to come to a youngster, put him up with a senior and say, let's go for a wrestling session, you know, because he's not going to learn anything from it. But put him with a senior guy who's willing to say, listen, well, I'm gonna win this fight, but I'm not gonna let you give up. You know, and if you don't give up, there's a chance that you're gonna maybe beat the second best or the third best, you know, or the other youngster. And I think it's something that you need to, you need to be mental tough when you get here. You need to be a different person. You need to have that little bit of hunger to, if you want to be successful in this system. But then again, also, you know, what you think is good enough, or, you know, what you think is mental tough is going to change completely over the next 3 months when you join the system. You know, because our standards are just completely different to what you get in any other 15 system. So, you know, coming here and you think, listen, well, I'm under one of the top schoolboy players, I'm going to be successful. You know, you must probably not, because the guy who's mentally strong, who's been working harder to almost be that number one, you know, he's the guy who maybe can push through. So you need to work with the youngsters and obviously not break them in the sense, but, you know, you need to be a youngster that is so tough that he's not willing to give up, you know. So I think it is a balance. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it sounds like it, but definitely a predisposition of having that kind of mentality and that drive, like you said. But the system obviously teaches you certain things as well.
of course. I think, we train, the guys come in and they do a double defense day, which means it's not long sessions, but you're doing a defense session in the morning and you're doing a defense session at night and afternoon, night. But where the difference is that our defense session is usually a 9 or 10 out of 10. It's where if you go to 15s in a defense session, it could be a 6 out. It's actually sometimes less than a attack session, just because the amount of players that we have on the field. So you come into a session like that where you do a double defense. It's something completely that you're not used to. So it's something that's where you might get tested in the sense of, I was tough, but now I'm tired. It's difficult to be tough when you're tired, and you still, after that, you maybe had another session and you've done already an extra session in the morning, so it's those sessions that will almost shape you to be a complete different, mental, tough person, I would say.
Yeah. Just to shift the spotlight back onto you a bit, if you could think of your 12 years at Sevens, what are some of the best moments, maybe the one most memorable moment that you have with the team?
I think the most memorable for me would be Commonwealth Games in 2014. New Zealand have won every single Commonwealth Games prior to that, and we going up to that almost tournament. We had such a, I would say, in-depth pre-type season. It was after season, but then going into that, we weren't number one in the world, we weren't even close at the time. But then going into like a type of pre-season where a lot of guys got injured, and eventually, 2 or 3 guys came in. I remember, I think Kwagga Smith came in like on 99. Mark Richards came in on 99. Guys like that. So the competition was so tough, and eventually half the guys who thought was going to go didn't go. And we had such a great week, not because we were successful. It's memorable because we won the tournament. That it was great, but I just think the week that we had, the build-up that we had leading up to that tournament was just something completely different. For a lot of guys, being part of like type of Olympic setup where you go with Team South Africa, you don't go as the Blitsbokke, you go as Team South Africa, and you're in almost like a village. It's something completely different. It's something different to experience. And, we've played in Glasgow many times, but completely different, playing in almost a different type of setup. Also having other sportsmen, within your South Africa, being there and supporting you, makes it completely different. It makes it more homey. There's guys who are almost like, who are also pushing for a gold medal, but want you to be successful as well. So that whole support within that week was something memorable. I think that's one that stands out for me. Another one was the first year in Cape Town. Winning in Cape Town, again, not because we were winning. It's just it was the year that Madiba passed, and it was the one year that I felt that we could make such a difference and such an impact. I think that coming off successful, and seeing how how we could almost pull a nation together, with a small, stupid 7 minutes aside game, is unbelievable. So the influence that we had within that tournament was massive, and I think that's why I remember it as one of my happiest moments.
Yeah. One of my mates went to Commonwealth Games with you guys that year, and I was debating with him if you knew him, because he claimed that he met you and he knows you. So I told him you don't, but I'm going to ask. His name's Andrea De Lave. He was one of the few Paralympian athletes that was there that year.
Yeah.
So. Okay, I was hoping you say no so that I can laugh at him, but okay, I'll tell him you remember.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, sure, man. Who's some of the toughest guys you've ever played against, or maybe the one toughest guy that you remember facing?
There's different tough guys. For me, as a youngster, being at the Free State, a guy I really looked up to at the time was Henry Scholes. And me being under 21 player, and what we would do is the Currie Cup would come and we'd maul and we'd have to defend. And, you know, they had a sort of move where he would be at the back and, you know, he's going to pick and go. And I was always at the back of the line, and so I knew I had to try and stop him.
Yeah.
So at that time, you know, I actually had a little bit of a run with the Currie Cup side, and you think, listen, you're tough now. And literally taught me lessons. I tried to tackle him high, didn't work, low, didn't work. Eventually I was clawing over him, and he said, listen, anyways, you must go harder. And that was actually what I thought, listen, you know, Currie Cup is a big man sport. It's a lot different to where you come to the junior system.
Yeah.
And then going, you know, to sevens, you know, there's a lot of guys who are physically tough. But one of the hardest guys to almost play against was, I would say, Tomasi Kama was definitely one of them. As one of those guys, you know, he could read a game, and, you know, if you think they're going left, you know, they're going right. And something you couldn't read. It's something he's just like, it made it so difficult to defend because the whole system revolved around, you know, his decision making. And being so unpredictable made everything else tough. You had to work so much harder. So I think one of the guys, who really like changed my whole thought process of seven. Sometimes less is more. Don't try and fetch him; he'll come to you.
Yeah. And playing with, maybe I don't want to do a disservice. You've had some amazing teammates over the years, but if you could maybe pick out one or two that really maybe influenced you to become better at what you do, or just change the way you saw the game.
You know, I don't think it's fair to almost take someone out. One guy who had a massive influence within our system, who didn't really play a lot, was Brian Abella. Came back before the Olympics, and he wanted to join our squad. And one thing that he started, he called everyone champion. So, and everyone used to ask him, why do you call everyone champion? He says, because eventually you have to get to a point where, you know, you have to start believing that you're going to be successful. And what actually he did, he actually was at the Commonwealth Games squad as well. He wasn't allowed to play at the time, but he had that same influence. And by the end of the week, everyone was calling him like, hey, champ, hey, champ, hey, champ. And eventually this guy's calling me a champ, you know. And eventually start thinking, listen, but, you know, that self-belief, you know, is something that you can pick up. And another thing that what he almost, you know, influence is that, you know, Brian Abana is coming in. You know, he's got 100 tests behind him. He's won every single competition there is in rugby, you know, except the Olympic. But everything that's 15s, he's won his Player of the Year. He's literally won every single thing. And a youngster could not get that jersey bag and the balls off his shoulders. Whether it'd be on the phone, you know, he would carry it and say, no, he's doing it. He'll take it to the back. And it just made you realize that, you know, no one is bigger than the game. So influence off the field, I think someone like that has had. I think, you know, guys around me at a time, we had a few forwards, you know, and I'm not going to mention any of the backs. They just in a different department in the air studio. But there's so many guys, you know, that, you know, it would be. I wouldn't want to single anyone out. I think, you know, I've just been fortunate to play with a few guys who are just unbelievable. I think, you know, not necessarily raw talent, but some of the hardest working guys, you know, that I know. And I think, you know, that's something special to have had.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think that just you not being able to single one out just kind of symbolizes the respect you guys have for one another in the team.
Yeah, I think, you know, we guys who are, you know, we want, you know, there's so much competition within each other, and you know, you can go 10 years time, well, listen, I was the best, you know, player or best forward, and the next guy is the best. But to be honest, you know, we're a squad where, you know, there's so many guys with influence, you know, that, you know, some guy who might not play a lot, you know, has a massive influence within our system. You know, he's just as good in terms of, you know, we're not looking at the individual, we're looking at the system. Whatever is going to influence the system, you know, and make the system great is sometimes more important than the players within. So I think what management does is, you know, we choose, you know, it's easy to take a guy like me and push me to the side and say, listen, let's get two new fresh youngsters in and see what they can do. But, you know, me coming as an older guy with a little bit of experience, you know, I add maybe, you know, something that's good with our team culture, or maybe a guidance aspect, not necessarily playing. So every single guy within the system has a certain role. Some roles are completely different. Some guys is just to bring some energy in the gym. They're great rugby players, but their actual role outside off the ball is maybe to bring that energy. And that's what makes our system, and each individual player crucial to our whole system.
Yeah. No, I think that's very cool. So you being an older guy, and also something that's come up a lot in the podcast is the transition from being a professional sportsman and living kind of this traveling and flamboyant lifestyle, with all due respect, and then you got to go into the normal life. Suddenly you retire and you've got to get a normal job or start a company or whatever you're going to do. How far are you in the process of that thought, and what are your plans going forward?
Are you trying to give me a job, or should I keep looking?
I wish I had one for you.
No, to be honest, it's something, what's almost changed. Previously, guys would leave the system and almost be in shock for 6 months to a year, and just jump onto something but not be happy. And I think, my players have really taken the reins in the sense that they've made us more aware of what's happening after rugby. And it could happen tomorrow, and it's scary to say. You basically one fall away, from maybe that being your end. So what I did was, I'll give you a background. I started studying in Bloem, and studied for 3 years, and then played rugby for 4 years straight. And then, as I saw 2 or 3 guys, stopping, I started realizing this. They stop here. They don't really have a plan. They're not really. They've been on top of the world, 50,000 people, but there's not a single guy who's willing to give them a job. So I realized that for me, it's something that I needed to educate myself. So I went on to go study further in construction, and do two degrees within that. And, now started with a small internship on an off day with one of the big development firms. So, it's difficult to have a full commitment to rugby, because that's actually your job, and then also your maybe your 1 foot outside the door. But because either way, one's going to give. If you're not 100% focused on your rugby, you're gonna slip up somewhere. So that's where we almost taught. When you're in the rugby, when you come into our facility, you're 100% there. Everything else is cut off, and you give 100% focus, and you there do a good job. But when you're off day, take it completely off, switch off from rugby, do what you have to do first, switch off what you're doing there, and then go and find something that you enjoy and that you can see yourself being successful in. So I found a company that I started doing a small internship for, and just trying to learn as much as possible. And then obviously looking at a lot of things. The older you get, the more you realize there's a lot of opportunity, and going around the world, you have to be enthusiastic about different things that come from different countries, and maybe you can bring it here. So I think that's something I've realized. But we never do enough, in a sense that there's not the success rate of rugby players going out and being very successful within corporate or within business, is slim. And I think that's something we're trying to change, and then try and, it's pointless. You come from, a small 2-bedroom house, and you've seen the world, you've made money, and then you have to move back into that small 2-bedroom house. It just doesn't make sense. You've had all the opportunity to, be successful. So, almost guide that in the right direction. So I think it's something that my players have really pushed on, and getting the guys educated, even if not educated, just getting the guys almost, streetwise in what is actually real life. I think the sporting aspect takes away from, how things really work in the real world. You can't just pitch and someone's going to, put shoes on your feet. It just doesn't work like that, You have to really go out and work for whatever you want. So it's something, we do focus on, but obviously never enough.
Yeah, for sure. So you've come from a family, and this is my last formal question before we go into some fan questions. But you've come from a very successful family in terms of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your sister's an international netball player, or she was.
Yeah.
For Ireland, I think, or
correct. Yeah.
Correct. And then your brother's obviously a professional cricketer, or trying to be. and then yourself. So what
Yeah.
it must be something more than genetics. What happened in your household to have 3 kids and all 3 representing their country or something, you know?
I think we were a little bit delayed on color TV. I think we were forced to play outside.
Yeah.
No, it's something. It's it's something that probably I think just happened. Obviously we had tight group, and you see your sister going through the ranks, becoming a semi-professional netball player at the time, semi-professional, and then you also want to be sporting. You also want to have that success, and you have obviously that guidance. You can see what worked and what didn't work, and then obviously the younger brother coming through, he sees his brother playing, and he also wants to be successful. I think we fortunate in the sense my mom always says we got her hands. My mom was a netball player, played for Western Province.
Right,
So I don't know what I got from my dad. I think my dad played a little bit of junior rugby. So we're a sporting household. I think we just always been attracted to balls and to playing, running around. And I think obviously Corné is only attracted to small balls, and we've got obviously the big ball. But I think it's just something that happens. We were fortunate to have almost athletic ability, I would say, and transfer that into becoming a professional sportsman. I think is it's either the luck of a charm. I think maybe good genes.
No, it must be something about the genes. No, I thought that was cool because I never knew about your sister, and then recently I figured that out, and I thought, geez, that's quite a successful family. That's very cool. A lot of pressure on your kids, one day in the household.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they become smart.
Yeah, depends if you're married smart. That's the question.
Yeah.
So I just want to go to some questions I put out to Instagram, and then people send through some questions. Most of them are obviously silly. Maybe some people that know you, but let's go through them anyway. The first one is what advice would you have for your brother to do better with a bat?
Yeah, you must also realize that he's not playing sevens. He can stay there a while.
Yeah.
It's something I've, me and my dad always used to watch him. Like he would always, go in and, you just try and smash. I don't really know. To be honest, I was very terrible at cricket. And growing up, he used to bowl, and I used to say, listen, I need a batter, which is obviously fun. And going and then realizing how quick he bowls, I used to bail. So I can't really give him any help on the batting tips. I would say maybe just block it out.
Yeah, for sure. No. I actually thought Corné was always underrated as a batter. He has the skill. Even as a rugby player, he was a skillful rugby player, but he was always kind of seen as the cricket guy.
Yeah. I think, I've seen him hit a few runs, and I've seen him very successful at bat. I think, for him and maybe from a coach's aspect, they've always focused just on his bowling, being an opening bowler, you don't, batting is almost second. Whether I think, it's something that I think if he really had the opportunity in the sense of to work on that aspect as much as he worked his bowling, I think he would probably be better. Sorry, my dog's coming to say hi.
Yeah, no problem. So, the next question is, who's the fastest player you've ever played against? Or with, maybe it's with as well.
Wow, I think with Siabelo Sinatla, and that's difficult because now Roscoe is going to message me and say, why didn't you say I'm the fastest? Because they're probably both up there.
Yeah.
But between them two, Roscoe quick off the mark and Siabelo quick in the straight. And then, playing against Colin Isles, I think, is one of the guys who is very quick. Obviously being an athlete, a USA sprinter. But then, you get different, you get a guy like, well, let's just take Colin Isles, for example. Colin Isles will literally be able to round you within 5 meters, but that's what he's going to do. Whereas you get Perry Baker, who's arguably just as quick, but he's got feet and he can step and he can jump as well. So, that makes him even more dangerous. So, you've got a very fast guy, you've got a fast guy who can use his feet. So I think Perry Baker is probably one of the most lethal with his speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting because they're both from a country that is not known as the rugby, like a rugby nation, but they do so well,
Yeah.
especially lately. What have they? I don't know. I don't want to get too much into that, but what have they? Do you know what they've done to just jump in the rankings so quick? The USA team.
Well, you must also think of it in the broader aspect. They've taken 10 guys who they made core guys, and they've been in the system for 5-6 years. I think once you get that group going, like sort of what we've done, over here, they brought in all top athletes. They brought in guys who are NFL guys, the guys who have also been sprinters. They got all the different sports guys who obviously grew up playing rugby. Military guys who have been within, playing rugby is a big culture thing in America, the military guys. And then also bringing a coach, with a lot of experience. A guy who's coached England international team, women and men, Kenya, and now, Mike Friday being now the US coach, he's got tons of experience. So he knows how to get those guys firing. And, sevens is a game where you need to understand the game, but more than that, you need to be athletic. And I think that's where they've really hit the nail on the head. They got guys who really work hard, and to be honest, they don't get paid as much as some of the guys in the industry do, but they're willing to work hard because they also want to be successful. They also want to create the sevens brand. I think that's what makes them lethal.
Yeah, awesome, man. And then looking forward, obviously, guys like Siabelos and Adler are starting to move into 15s and speaking out about his desire to play there. Who are some of the young up-and-coming guys that we should look out for? Who are some of the stars that you've seen?
Well, I think one of the guys who I think made an unbelievable name for himself was Angelo Davis last year. He's a guy who played for Western Province in the junior systems and he played 1 or 2 tournaments. And then last year was just something else. I think, everyone thought, we've got 2 or 3 speedsters. And here comes Angelo, who's a speedster, but he can tackle. He can play 14 minutes. And then if needed, he can even move to a hooker role as a forward. It's something that's unheard of. A guy like that, is bound to be, lethal on a seven circuit. So he's one of the guys I think who's really made an unbelievable statement this last season. And then someone like JC Pretorius is, we always knew he had talent. You had to channel that into a sevens system. So give him a ball, I call him the Wit Rot. He can literally, he'll run and not stop. And, when he hits over the try line, it looks like he needs an ambulance because he gives it his all. But as a guy who's really, become like a Kwagga Smith type of role, he's lethal on the ground. He can run with the ball. He's quick. He's willing to work hard in defense and he's very strong. So a guy like that, also came from last year. I think if there was a dream team this year, I think he probably would have been close to making that.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool. I look forward to seeing what's going to happen going forward with our sevens, To end off, one message that you would give to maybe a younger version of yourself or a young person coming through the ranks or at school still, like one message you would say that helped you, kind of in your life?
I think one message is difficult. It's very cliche, but hard work is the say all and end all for me. I think yes, it needs to be directed. You need to be smart as well. But no one is going to beat a guy who's not willing to work hard. I think a guy who's going to be consistently pushing and knocking on the door. Eventually, that door's got to open. And any person who was like me, I was. I had to take a very long route to get where I wanted to be. Coming out of school, not playing first team, not getting a contract out of school. My first contract was in my second year or my third year, sorry, and that was 2,000 rand a month. So I wasn't seen as the next best rugby player. But from the age of 16, 17, I never stopped working. And within our system, we call it money in the bank. And money in the bank means that you keep on putting that money in. And eventually, when you look and you need that money, it's there. And that's that foundation that no one else sees. Yeah, so it all pays off in the end, you know. And sometimes, you know, guys have worked hard and it's not paid off in rugby, but you know, he's learned how to have great work ethic, and that he can transfer wherever he goes, you know, and not necessarily be successful within the rugby system, but be successful in something else. So I'm a firm believer of hard work, and you know, just be a good person. You know, things are going to come your way.
Yeah, awesome, man. Listen, thanks for this, Chris. I really appreciate your time and your insights. I think it's been one of the most insightful episodes I've done, because you know, the Sevens team is known for so much, but it's quite secretive. You know, what is it really that's made you guys click? And yeah, it's been cool to hear all of that and to hear it from you, one of the most experienced players. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was like, and yeah, look after yourself and hopefully chat soon.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll send you a message when I'm going to post it and the links and stuff.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Lekker, man. Cheers,
Cool.
everyone.
Cheers. You too, man.